Part 1. Basic Philosophy and Thoughts on Brilliant Love. The Ordinary Romantic Love Relationship.
So Urvasi said goodbye, and with her departure, Purava's world shattered into pieces. He lost all composure, and from now on lamented like a madman. His despair grew so great that he tore his hair, threw himself onto his bed, and cried out pleadingly, "Urvasi, Urvasi!" He was no longer capable of any decent action. He reacted so irritably that his ministers even summarily suggested that he should resign himself from the office, and instead should take a vacation. And here he was, the venerable king, shot and struck by all 5 arrows of mundane love, deeply pierced by the last arrow, Madana Madness. He went completely crazy and ran around in the forests of his own country, seeking refuge there while asking every fool and even trees or animals about his Urvasi. "Have you seen my Urvasi?" I will describe the further course of this story later. What should fascinate us at this point is the remarkable intensity with which Purava fell under the spell of romantic love. The tragedy of this story, which originates from a document of previous ages, is and will, of course, always remain relevant. It will remain relevant as long as the material world exists. Each of us has had a similar experience at least once in a lifetime. Indeed, many, young, old, and even the elderly, yearn for this state of being infatuated again and again, understandably, because love seems to be the juice, and others, who cautiously avoid an overly intense romance, because they prefer to remain in a gray, safe zone with their devotion and their feelings, that is, the ordinary masses. Those who don't have the luxury of living and loving intensely will meanwhile continue to dream of that dramatic, diabolically romantic love affair in cinema, on TV, or in pop or country music. They follow their stars and celebrity heroes and pine, suffer, fight, and even murder in their minds for so-called love with them in mind. Because no one in this universe is indifferent to this topic. So let us be clear, there is nothing more exciting, nothing more dominant in the worldly realm than this being caught. And all the countless songs, plays, movies, and books about the romantic aspect of love relationships testify to this. And in these stories, inspired by real experiences, there is lustful desire and conquest, love and separation again. Romeo and Juliet, Herbert and Isolde, Faust and Gretchen, Edward Cullen and Bella Swan, all these countless kinds of passionate, sometimes tragic romances. Often, as mentioned above, it also comes to a bloody end. Sometimes one hears that someone even kills themselves because they can no longer get together with their beloved one. Either the other has died or has left with someone else, and the state of separation is so unbearable that one wants to completely destroy the self, or rather what one thought was the self. And in some love stories, one of the lovers commits suicide together with the beloved, especially when a third party, a rival, is involved. In this case, she would rather see both of them die before the bond of love is ended by the third party. The misery, already illustrated by the introductory example of Purava, is therefore, and that it is probably in the nature of every ordinary romance, that it does not last. And precisely it is this drive for permanence which seems to be the crucial key to understanding the logic of my further considerations. For isn't the longing for permanence justified? Where does this unspeakable power and fascination come from, with which the topic of the passionate romance captivates us again and again? Why do we want it all the time immortalized? Is it clear and obvious what I'm getting at? There have always been and continue to be people who sacrifice their own bodies, the only instrument, so to speak, with which they have any possibility of shared enjoyment. or they go so far as to kill the loved one who refuses to reciprocate, either out of pride and false ego or out of desperation. Basically, this is the best prerequisite for not continuing the romance. So if schizophrenia is not to be the pinnacle of human possibilities, there must be somewhere an original experience, a promise, a reality of what the actions of billions of lost souls strive for. But what and whom are we seeking? How can we love beyond the limited time? What original are we trying to copy in space and time? Why do we marry? Why do we constantly enter into emotional contracts which should promise us some kind of security? Why do we encircle our emotional treasures? And why, if our ambitious endeavors fail, are we prepared to make threats to destroy ourselves or others? Or as soon as a longing is fulfilled, to erect meters of barbed wire around the supposed arrangement, solely to save a fragment of the real? But what is this real? Why do even the noblest characters become blackmailers, tyrants, or even terrorists? Solely to seal a promise with pressure, to defy the dictates of time, to erect a monument to the whisper of romance? Billions of souls sit between some walls and chairs, asking themselves non-stop, who is the right one for me? In whom can I satisfactorily invest all my romantic potential? When will this only one arrive which fills up the vacuum which bites me constantly while I am walking on this blue and somewhat strange planet? The one with whom I am granted the greatest possible permanence, that almost imperishable love I am waiting for, that it finally enters through that one open door. But aside from this great waiting, an eye-opening truth should enter our attention. The simple fact that no one has ever succeeded in realizing an immortal love without a false self having died for it. For ordinary lovers, permanence is and remains an unattainable myth. But because the willingness of all heroes and heroines to demand permanence endures, and the desire for intensity never diminishes, because at times sacrifice, even murder or suicide, is possible. Because not a day goes by without one of our most secret thoughts and longings, seeking a more meaningful, more romantic dimension of existence. Indeed, because we couldn't continue to live if this hope for romantic love had to be abandoned. All the saints and genius lovers have since claimed that love in its highest expression will always be dearer to oneself than one's own self, that is, one's own body. But that, in turn, would mean that true love must transcend the body and, in this sense, is not of this world.